Alright, greetings ESL 31 class. This is Mr. Kole here to share with you a video lecture on subject-verb agreement. Subject-verb agreement. So what we first need to think about is, what does it mean to agree? If you agree with someone, you share a similar belief. Or if you agree with an idea, you may believe that the facts of that idea are worth believing. Subject-verb agreement is a little bit different from how we consider agreement in grammar. Okay? Agreement in grammar is a little bit different from agreement in the real world. Okay, so first let's think about our subjects. Okay. What we mean when we say subject-verb agreement is, simply enough put, that to have one particular kind of subject, you need another particular kind of verb. Okay. So what we need to look at first is, what are our subjects, or what kinds of subjects do we have in the English language? Well, we have essentially 5 different subjects, and they are as follows. You can have a first-person subject. You can have a second-person subject. All right? You can also have a third-person subject as well. Okay, and we'll look at some examples in a minute. Also, within these first, second, and third-person subjects, you have singular and plural forms. Singular we'll put in this column, and plural will identify another column for the plural forms as well. Okay. So, just as we have first, second, and third person in our plural forms, we have first, second, and third person in our singular forms. First, second, and third person in singular and plural forms. Okay. So, I'm sure you're asking yourself, Mr. Kole, what are our examples? Well, they are as follows. Your subject for first-person singular nouns is always I. There is no variation there. There is no variation in the subject's form in the first-person subject. Second-person subjects, still in singular. We have you. Okay? And that, again, is the only form of second person. First person is I, you're talking about yourself. Second person is you, talking directly to another person. So if I was to say first person, I would say I, Mr. Kole, and you would say, well, it's not that you would say it, it's that I would say to you, you. Okay? So it is still implying an interaction. All right. First and second persons very much imply the speaker's reference. The speaker's reference in first person is I, meaning the speaker. The speaker's reference in second person is you, meaning the person that is directly listening to the message. Okay, so first and second person, they interact very much so. Third person has a bit of variation though. It can change a lot. You have your basic pronouns as well, he and she. Also, you have the pronoun it, which is equally relevant for third-person singular contexts. So when we're thinking about the message that's being stated, I, first person, you, the listener, third person is someone outside of our conversation or outside of our message. It's the third party, as they're often called. So someone who is not directly connected to first I or second you. That is your third persons. Also, names. Names are in the third person. Mr. Kole is third person. Any name at all is third person as well. Okay. Also, other nouns, which aren't first or second person, are also third person. Something like tree or building. So other nouns are represented by third person as well in subjects. Okay. Now moving on to first person plural. All right, this is a little bit different from first person singular, but the message still contains the speaker, the I. The I is still in first person plural, but the main difference is that you are including either a third party or the second party example. Okay. The simple pronoun is we. All right, that pronoun is the plural first person pronoun. It implies the speaker and someone else. It could be second or third person. Okay. Also within first person plural, you can have a combination of you and I, which technically implies we. But through two singular pronouns, we achieve we achieve plural first person. Okay? But it doesn't have to be second person in combination with I. It can also be third person in combination with I, such as Jim and I. Okay? So for first person plural, you can combine the first person pronoun with either a second person pronoun or a third person reference, or you can just simply use the we. And it is understood that you and I equals we, and Jim and I also equals we as well. Second person plural. This depends on who you ask. Grammars are going to say that the second person plural pronoun is you. This isn't what you will hear American English speakers say. Depending on where you are from geographically, you might hear y'all. Okay. That is the southern variation. Here in Virginia, we say y'all, and I am included within this speaking population. I say y'all. If you are from a northern state, you might hear yous. And this is an interesting variation because usually an S marks a plural noun. So you see here we have you plus S. But this is also informal. If you were to write y'all or yous in an English paper, your professor would take off points. See, these are just spoken forms, but you should be aware of them as you might hear them in real life. Okay. But again, the you example is what books will say. Some books even say that no pronoun exists at all. And that's why we've created y'all and yous and some other varieties, because no clear pronoun exists for us to use, so we invented one. Third person plural. Okay, we're back to isolated third parties. Okay, but they are plural third parties. So third parties are removed from the speaker and the listener. Okay, your typical pronoun is they. Let me write that a bit more clearly. Excuse me. Okay. Or it can be a plural combination of names. Just like you combine I and an additional reference to make we, you can combine two third-party references to make the plural third-person subject. Jim and Jane. Okay, this would be a third-person plural subject reference. All right. So what we have here are a list of subjects in sentences. As of right now, they aren't subjects though, are they? They're just nouns. So let's make them subjects. So what we need are verbs. Nouns can only be subjects if they are connected to a verb in some way. So this is when we're going to start discussing the agreement in subject-verb agreement, because you can't just place any verb in any position. Certain positions require certain specific verbs. Okay. So let's start with the be verb, because that is very commonly used. The verb to be is in the infinitive form here, right? It's unchanged. It's in the infinitive because no subject has been assigned to it yet. All right? So we need to assign verbs to these subjects, or assign subjects to these verbs, however you might see that. In order to do this, we have to practice what is called conjugation, verb conjugation. Verb conjugation. All conjugation means is to take a verb and change it according to the subject which it connects to. All right, so every subject connects to a verb. How you change that verb is a result of conjugation. So we're working with be, right? Be is very irregular. In the first person singular form, it is am. I am. In the you form, it is you are. So we see two different verbs here. We see am and we see are. And the spelling is different, the pronunciation is different. However, they are both be verbs. Even though they're spelled differently, and even though they are different according to the subject, they're the same verb. Okay, they express the same thing. Third person is. I am, you are, she is. Subject-verb agreement, all for one singular verb. For we, you begin to see a pattern. For we, it is are. Erase to write clearly. We is are. We are. Okay, that is a subject and verb agreement example. We are. Okay. In addition to you, you'll oftentimes see it put formally with you all. Okay, and the verb is the same as the first person plural and as the second person singular. Okay? You all are. For third person, you also have are. They are. Jim and Jane are. Okay? These verbs are agreeing with their subjects. Okay, and that's the point of today's lesson. All right. So we see patterns here. We see are is repeated, but we have variation in the first person singular and the third person singular examples. And this is quite common. Specifically, the third person singular example is very different from all the others. Okay? So let's look at another verb, the have verb. We've looked at that for our perfect constructions. So instead of to be, let's analyze to have. Let's see if we can see a pattern. I have. First person singular. You have. All right, so we have pattern emerging. He, she, it has in irregular form. And you notice there's an S here. Just like there was an S in the be form in third person singular. Is. We're going to see a pattern in this S. On to we have. You all have. And they have. Of course, we're conjugating these verbs according to simple present tense. Okay? And this is the more common pattern you will see. you will see everything, every verb, the same in most cases, except for third person singular. All right? So let's look at a verb that's not irregular at all. Something like love. All right? There is no irregular form of the verb to love. But we have some complications when it comes to subject-verb agreement. All right? I love, you love, he, she, it, or names loves. That S has come back, hasn't it? We love, you all love, and they love. Subject-verb agreement. We take it from the conjugation of the infinitive and we put it into the simple present form. Okay. So all we've looked at so far is simple present tense verbs. But there is some irregularity beyond the simple present tense. Okay? All right. So let's look at the past tense. To love can still be our verb. Okay? But if we conjugate things according to simple past, they have simple past tense forms. All right? I loved in the past tense. Loved. You loved. All right, what do you think is going to happen with this S? The S disappears. You don't have any irregularity with this verb example. He, she, it loved. We loved, you all loved, and they loved. Okay, we don't see a lot of irregularity in the past tense forms. But some verbs, like be, are irregular in pretty much every verb construction context. And there is some irregularity with be in the past tense. Let's look at that example. Moving back to be. I was. Let me erase my circles because we have a different pattern emerging. You were. Irregular form. He, she, it was. And you see that S manifesting itself here. We were. Okay. You all were. And they were. Okay. Here you have past tense, but there is a bit of irregularity involved. Okay. Usually in past tense, you're not going to have to worry about this S manifesting itself in the third person singular subject. But you notice the I has the was this time, which is quite irregular. Okay. All right, so again, what we're talking about is matching a subject with a verb. Okay? And that's what we're looking at here. We see the S manifest itself in the third person singular context quite often within any verb. Even the verbs which aren't irregular, they are still going to have the S context. Okay. All right. So we have a basic rule derived here, is that there are patterns between our subjects and our verbs, which are consistent. They are consistent patterns. Okay? And what's important is that you first recognize these different, what's called points of view, okay? Or different persons. First person, second person, third person. And there is variation between the singular forms of these persons and the plural forms of these persons. Okay. So, for homework, I want everyone to work from the Azar grammar book specifically, and I want you all to be working on page 84, exercise 1. So let me make some room to write your homework up here. Page 84, exercise number 1 specifically. And I'd also like you all to take a look at page 89, exercise number 11. Okay? So this wraps up our discussion of subject-verb agreement. I look forward to seeing everyone, and I hope you enjoyed this digital environment. Okay, have a great day.